How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into these books, man. We got a lot to get through. So let's start now with Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 3 from Hickman. This has been a great series so far. Issue number 3 is another spectacular issue, and it develops a little bit more about some of the relationships that we've seen in the first 2 issues, specifically around Jonah and Uncle Ben. Like, they're setting up their practice right now, trying to understand where their lines are, where their morals are, and they're trying to get Peter, honestly, recruited to do some of the work in here as well, trying to investigate some of the new maybe anti-heroes or heroes, vigilantes, whoever they are in the city. There's this mysterious green guy floating around trying to attack Kingpin all the time. There's this other mysterious guy in another suit with like web powers and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek things. We know as a reader some of the things that are happening, but these characters are still trying to figure it out. Really charming moments with Peter and his daughter trying to develop a new suit, and a classic villain coming back in here, causing some mayhem, and an unlikely team up as well. The art in here is absolutely killer. The story is engaging. I'm loving this series so far. Let me know if you guys are reading it and what you guys think. Next, we have X-Men 97. What a great timing for this book, because we've had the first 3 episodes of X-Men 97 hit Disney Plus, and I love them, and the reviews are really, really positive so far. It looks like this comic is taking place about 8 to 9 months prior to that show, so you get a little build up in seeing, how we got to where we are in the show. Jean finds out she's pregnant in here. Of course, there's all the cliche things that we've seen before with the battle between Wolverine and Cyclops and him trying to juggle what it means to be a leader in the X-Men, and we have some Dazzler appearances and things like that. Some really cool artwork. It's very reminiscent of the actual cartoon show, so if you're into that style, you're going to like this. It's really bright, it's very clean, it's vibrant, the voices all feel really interesting, or they feel authentic, right? So X-Men 97, if you've been digging the animated series, you've seen the first issue or first episode or 2 on Disney Plus, you can jump right into here, and it's a great complimentary thing for the show. So let me know if you read it down below. All right, next from Hickman, we have Gods. This is issue number 6. This is a series I was really excited for. It's kind of whimpered out a little bit, to be honest with you, in the last few issues. We had such a great first issue, some really interesting subsequent issues after that, lots of world building, a lot of cool characters, amazing artwork. It feels a little bit episodic at this point right now, and I know it's going to be ending fairly soon, so that's a real big disappointment. This issue is still fun. We have one of our avatars for the Order of Natural Things, Ayoko, something like that, and we were introduced to her a long time ago. She was Wynn's significant other, and they had to separate because they're in 2 warring factions, essentially. She brought on a new recruit. Her name was Maya, and she actually kind of instructed her to give up her entire life, all of her beliefs, her family, her friends, and everything to join their ranks because they were in a recruiting mode because they lost a whole lot of people. It's a little bit more complex than that, but she's having a crisis of faith at this point, and she's relying on some pretty shady people to get her in front of very powerful entities in the Marvel mythos so that she can undo this thing. Like, how can she change reality? And this is a really cool issue because basically it outlines the steps, the sacrifices, some of the, temptations and decisions she needs to make to get all the way there. There's multiple stages she has to go through. There's instances where she has to pick between, losing an eye or having to tell the truth and only the truth for a full day or something like that. And each sacrifice, each level, each stage stacks on top of each other, and it gets progressively harder in theory to fulfill your goal, right? To get to where you need to get to. And we get some run-ins again with some pretty powerful beings in the Marvel universe that just really don't get a chance to shine in any other Marvel books at this point. So it was an interesting story altogether, but me knowing this is going to end pretty soon and with no sign of it continuing later, it's got me down. It's still a cool read, but I can see it ending soon. So it's I don't know what we're going to do. Are you guys reading Gods? Let me know down below. All right, let's go over to DC. We're going to start with Penguin issue number 8 from Tom King. I love this run so far. Tom King does a lot of great things. Penguin is one of them right here. So if you're not reading Penguin, I recommend picking up the trade or getting some of the single issues in the dollar bins or wherever they might be at this point and checking it out because it's just beautifully, beautifully written, and the artwork in here is spectacular as well. So this one is really cool because it's showcasing the rise of the Penguin back in Gotham City. If you haven't been following along, Penguin was presumed dead a long time ago. He's acquiring and cashing in all these his favors in taking out the necessary people so he can rise back to power. And he's a maniacal dude, completely twisted, lots of great resources at hand. And there's this other cool story about his children trying to slow him down. They've assumed some control in Gotham. He's trying to take it back right now. And it's a really, really cool book. This one right here focuses on, doesn't quite focus, but half the book is focusing on this conversation with Riddler and, you know, how much of a joke he was in the past and things like that. There's a lot of cool banter back and forth. It's a very in your head, moody kind of a book. Not a whole lot of action. It's more like setup and drama and suspense and character development, things like that. Focusing on characters in a way that we've never seen them before focused on. And of course, we get a little bit of Batman action in here as well, which it's great timing because a few issues ago, we had some other Batman interactions when Oswald was just kind of rising up in the ranks. We saw how they were collaborating with each other. We get a little bit of that, a hint inside of here as well. This book also leaves things out in the open, man. Leaves you with a lot of questions at the end of it. There's this mass murder we're trying to investigate still. Of course, Gordon's involved, trying to piece this all together, like how the hell this even happened. So it's a real moody, atmospheric kind of book. There's not a whole lot of action, but when there's action, it really pays off. So the pacing is really cool, great writing and everything. Penguin, one of the best DC books out right now for sure. Check it out if you're not. Speaking of a great DC book, we have a new one from Mark Russell and the Allreds on Batman Dark Age #1. So if you read Superman Space Age, which was a 3-issue, kind of like square bound book that came out, man, I want to say about a year ago, this is the same Batman that spins out of that. So it's focused on like Pariah and some of the inevitability that he might bring for the destruction of Earth. And so this is another retelling of Batman. So, you know, the origin story is a little bit different. You know, he doesn't witness his parents getting murdered. There's different people in charge of Wayne Tower and the Wayne Fortune, things like that. There's a different story behind Bruce's like evolution into Batman himself, what he was doing when he was a teenager, getting into some trouble, getting arrested all the time. Then the Wayne Corporation is ran by these real shady people who kind of want him out of the way. So they rig the court and rig the system and everything and try to put him out of commission so he can't mature into a position of power in the company. We get some Selena Kyle stuff in here. Again, the Allreds are in here on the art perspective, so we get some great penciling and coloring from them. And it's just an amazing book. It's just really, really cool to see this character continually evolving based on who's writing them and drawing them. And it's just, it feels like a story that could be told 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, and it's going to be entertaining every single time. So Batman Dark Age, if you like Space Age, Superman Space Age, I think you're going to love this one. Definitely check it out. Detective Comics Rob V is on this one, and this is a great issue because this is actually the return of Batman into Gotham, fighting a lot of the demons in the desert, the metaphysical and the literal desert that Talia brought him to go through some kind of resurrection journey, right? He has to fight a lot of those demons, and I got to be honest with you, a lot of that stuff is a little bit over my head, but I mean, there's a lot of characters that were challenging him to be the right thing, do the right thing for the right reasons, and, you know, come out the other end a completely changed and morphed person. And so we're going to see what that means in subsequent issues. The coloring is beautiful on here because depending on who's telling the story, or depending on which part of the story it is, rather, there's a different art shift, and it really, really works, I think. They're continuing that thing where they have a couple different storylines happening at once. We're focusing on the Question in certain parts of this book, and there's some interactions with Jim Gordon, and so that's pretty cool to see the Question back in action. There's also this Dr. Hurt story going on in the back. I can't quite piece that all together just yet. That's my least favorite of this. It's kind of bouncing between those three. Dr. Hurt's more towards the end, but just know that Batman has been taken out. He is back fighting his internal demons. He's going back to Gotham right now, and we're going to see what kind of Batman he's going to be and what he's able to do with this essentially parasite that's taken over Gotham right now and has erased the memory of him from the civilians. So that's a pretty cool thing we have to overcome still. Detective Comics 1083. Great read. What do you guys think? Titan Comics, we have Conan the Barbarian. I love this issue. It's actually taken me back to the first arc, which was my favorite part of this arc so far. We are on issue number 9, and what's cool about this one is the evil that we were attacked by in the first arc is actually back. It swallowed up Conan. He found a way to break free of that possession, and it's actually transported him back in time to another world very similar to his, but he's like meeting people of lore, right, of myth and legend, and nobody knows who he is. There's one character though that there's probably a deep cut for Conan fans in here, and that kind of went over my head, but man, we have King Null in here, and we have this great battle between the two of them because they're very suspicious of each other. They're both at the top of their game, and so Conan is being placed in a situation where he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know what time period it is roughly. Nobody trusts him. Of course, he doesn't trust anybody, and he has to figure out how to get out of the situation alive, right? Because a lot of people are suspicious of this dude. So Conan the Barbarian, this is a great issue right here. If you read the first arc, you can probably jump into this one if you got bored of the second arc, to be honest with you, but I'm glad we're back to basics right now, man. Conan, great read. Next, we have The First Americans from Critical Entertainment. This was another great issue from this team, focusing on some of the early settlers between like the Bering Strait, right? Between Asia and North America. It's like a hunter-gatherer type of society taking on mammoths and all kinds of beasts out in the wild, showing some of their team-up maneuvers and things like that, and how sometimes they don't always come home to their tribe successful. And it's like, you know, doing whatever you can do to keep your society, your civilization alive. One of the warriors gets pretty desperate and goes out on his own to try to, I don't know, either reclaim his alpha position, or maybe he's just so burdened with the fact that like his society is depending on his success that he's going around trying to, you know, get some food, get some resources for his people once again. And it becomes quite clear to these folks that like, hey, we need to start traveling, we need to move, and we need to migrate in order to stay alive. So it's a pretty cool book about just like the evolution of a society itself, people taking it upon themselves to be the hero, to be the saviors of their society, and yeah, all the dangers that were out there back in the day. So another great book from Critical Entertainment. Check it out. Then from Mad Cave Studios, we have Morning Star issue number 1. So this one's kind of slipped my radar. I'm glad that I picked it up though, because it was a pretty interesting book. Essentially, we're opening up with these guys that presumably are like firefighters, right? But they actually do wildfires, and there's these different fire towers that are out there, and these guys are trying to escape their inevitable death, essentially. But there's something else going on here, some kind of a supernatural thing where they're basically being frozen, and they can't really do anything about it. We don't quite understand what is going on there. Of course, we see the repercussions of this father's death, and he has a couple of kids and a wife, and you know, they're kind of going through their mourning process right now and trying to, I don't know if they're trying to like celebrate the father's life by going on a hike or a trip to where he went missing now that the fire's out and it's much later in the year or something like that. But there's something else supernatural going on. Maybe the spirit or the essence or something like that is reaching out to one of the kids. And so we get a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end there about what that could mean. And we're in a pretty cool landscape. The art's really interesting. Haven't really seen anything like this before. It's a cool enough story. It's got an interesting hook, cool setup to it. So Morning Star number 1. Did you guys read it? What'd you guys think? Next from Boom Studios, we have Man's Best issue number 1. Now I think this one came out a week ago or so, but I just now picked it up. So I'm going to throw it in here just to give you an idea of what this book is all about. So it's kind of like support animals in space. So if you're into that kind of a thing, it is pretty cool. I think that also the other comparison was Homeward Bound in space or something like that. Whatever kind of comparisons you want to throw together, it is what it is there. So the art style is really cool in here. We basically have these different pets kind of playing astronaut. Some of them are decked out with like rockets, and some of them have suits and things like that. And they actually get released after their ship crashed on the ground or on this one planet that they were approaching. And so their masters are pretty much gone. So they're on their own right now, navigating this hostile landscape, and they've trained for this. They know how to battle and work together. They're trying to. It reminds me of early X-Men, where they're in the danger room and they're trying to make their powers work and they're trying to collaborate. Same thing going on here, but when the real threats start coming at them, they start kicking into gear and actually start helping each other out and doing the right things. But, you know, is it enough? What other threats are out there? That's what we're going to be exploring inside of these issues right here. So Man's Best, really cool artwork and things like that. Interesting story. I'm going to need a couple more issues to really sell it to me, but so far so good. Issue number 1. Did you guys read it? What'd you think? Next from Dark Horse Comics, we have Ghostbusters Back in Town issue number 1. So this is reading like it's a Frozen Empire, I think it's called, the movie. It's either like a prequel to that or something like that. Or it's maybe another story about how this character, this new iteration of the Ghostbusters, comes to New York and gets set up at the old station. You see some familiar faces and things like that. And then, of course, we get some kind of ghoul or monster, ghost, whatever, come out of the woodworks here. And we're just trying to do whatever we can do to take care of that. The kids are going back to school. You know, they're having a hard time. There's this cool little cutout of the fire station about what everyone's doing at that moment. The artwork is not great, to be honest with you. The story itself is fine. It has a few Easter eggs in there, which was kind of cute and everything. But like at the end of the day, I think the artwork was just a little bit too juvenile for me. And the story itself, I don't necessarily love this iteration of like the Ghostbusters crew, to be honest with you. I love it whenever we get some of the old folks in. The last page really got me excited though, but Ghostbusters Back in Town, killer cover on this one too. Let me know if you read it, and especially if you've watched Frozen Empire. Like, do you think this is a prequel to that story itself, or is this something completely different or a parallel story or something like that? I don't know. Let me know if you guys read it down below. Next, from Image Comics, we have Under York issue number 1. So this was a cool issue because it's actually focusing on these different magic users, and it's an ancient magic, and they're broken up into the 5 different boroughs, this different types of magic. And there's this girl in here who's got a magical past. I think her parents were doing some pretty shady stuff that they shouldn't be messing with in the mystical world. And now her and her brother have to basically pay for the sins of their parents. And so it's a pretty interesting story. It's got a lot of great art as well. This main character is actually an art dealer, or an artist, and she's at this art exhibit that she's featured in, and her art comes alive and starts like tearing people apart and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. But what really got me interested was learning that there's different types of magic and different owners of that magic based on the different boroughs inside of New York, and they have to stop this apocalyptic thing from happening. And so they need to join the ranks and get moving here. So the premise was really cool. The art was interesting. Dialogue was fine. I don't know if it's a book I'll continue getting. I think it was a cool issue number 1. Didn't blow me away. It was okay though. Did you guys read it, and what'd you guys think? All right, next we have the Six Fingers issue number 2. I love this one way more than issue number 1 because we're actually getting to the meat and potatoes of some of the stuff, and this issue here ties directly into the last issue of the One Hand, specifically the part where they're at the art gallery and our detective character sees the man with the 6 finger and starts pointing him out and yelling towards him. This book kind of leads up to that. It really reminds me of reading some Sin City stuff where you're going to read some character goes into the bar, and there's Nancy and things like that, and there's so-and-so in the corner. The next book of Sin City you might read, it's from the other guy's perspective, kind of happening at the same time. So I really like that. We don't know a whole lot about this killer just yet. All we know is there's probably something going on with the medication he's been taking for his mutation, and that medication might have other side effects that he wasn't aware about. Maybe something like blacking out and having homicidal rage, who knows? But we're going to be exploring that a little bit more. Killer artwork in here too, great pacing, great character design. So yeah, Six Fingers issue number 2, my favorite of the 2 issues that have come out so far. And I love how it's now tying in to the One Hand from Rom V. This is going to be a great ride, I think. So check this out if you haven't. Salmon Twitch, issue number 1. This is Case Files. So written by Todd McFarlane, and we have Kodransky on the art, and which is the main reason why I picked this book up, because I typically don't read Spawn, but when Kodransky's doing some interiors, man, I got to check this out, especially at a cardstock $2.99 price point. It also has this new U up here. I don't know if that's normal or if that's new, but that's something that I'm just now noticing. So let me know what that's all about if you guys have any information. But this is a Salmon Twitch book. So we have some thugs that we see in the early parts of this issue. They're kind of walking around, and then Sam and Twitch come in here, or Sam actually comes in here and starts busting this guy up a little bit, trying to get some information from him. They've made a deal, he's going to rat some people out, or he's going to identify some people. Dude doesn't show up, and so he comes out there and starts kicking some ass. Of course, this is kind of like the last strike, right, from their captain, and so they both go on probation, and now they have to figure out what to do. But while they're on probation, another murder happens, something completely sick and twisted. I don't even want to show you what's going on in here, but some of the artwork in here is absolutely incredible. They get looped into some other case right now because not a lot of guys have seen some twisted stuff like these two have, and so maybe they can help out. So really, really great issue. $2.99, well-drawn, cool detective story, Sam and Twitch in the Spawn universe. Dude, sign me up. This one was great. Check it out. All right, we have Local Man. I think this is a one-shot called Bad Girls. It's advertising Local Man issue number 10 on the back. I actually fell off of this series, but I really want to get back into it, which is why I picked this one up. I mean, the cover doesn't hurt at all, but I went ahead and picked this one up, and it's a pretty cool story, and the Bad Girls motif actually plays through this entire issue. There was a villain they introduced in here who basically set off a bomb called the Sex Bomb, I think it's called, and what basically happens is it wipes out all the men in the world. Not only the ones that are like older or middle age or whatever, I'm talking like fetuses and everything. And so the only people left in the world are females. And so they have to figure out what to do, how to run the world. Of course, they're at each other's throats, but obviously they learn how to like coexist and like make society work now. And they all start pointing their resources in the same direction so they can take on this threat and reverse this sex bomb that went off, essentially. The story of this is being told through two of the characters we met in the first arc, who were basically at one time or another in love with the same person. And there's kind of like this revenge, jealousy jealousy mission that's happening right now. And so I really like that perspective. It took me a little while to get caught back up on who these characters were, to be honest with you. But we have Neon, and then we have the other local girl who essentially set everybody up in the first arc. And so there's a lot of conversation and jealousy and hatred between these two characters. And I just love their backstories and their rationale for doing what they did. It feels pretty natural and cool. We get an interesting origin story for Neon in here, with some great paneling and artwork and color. And we get some cool cliffhanger type endings in here as well. We think it's going to head in one direction and it doesn't. The other great thing about this one is we get some awesome like vintage style pinups in the back, all these different kinds of almost like movie poster type things in the back here. So that's pretty cool if you're into that stuff. So Local Man Bad Girls, cool one shot, definitely gives you some more context on some characters we were introduced to in the first arc. So I would buy it just for that. And then issue number 10 is coming out in May. So looking forward to that. Let me know if you read it down below. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, Boom Studios. We have issue number 13. I've been loving this book, and especially since now we're in that future state that we were teased with a couple different times in the first early, half dozen issues or so. This is really cool. We actually have Mace and Mezzy just kicking complete ass in here, taking on this new breed of Rangers that she's put together over time. And I just love all the body augmentation that Mace has gone through. And I love the regret, the remorse, the jealousy, whatever that all these mixed emotions are that these two characters have and have been carrying with them for decades now. I just love how they're not quite set aside, but almost in a way to take care of whatever they have to take care of. And then they kind of go back into the routines they used to have when they were little and first met, right? And so it's a real complex relationship with a lot of emotion back and forth, but I really love everything I'm seeing in here. I love the over-the-topness of this Mad Max environment. It's just so cool. And it's heading in a really interesting direction. There's going to be a gigantic cliffhanger at the end of this. It's going to be just a battle for the centuries. And I am all for it. Armies running at our two guys right here. Cannot wait for it. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 13. Great cover right here. Great series. Check it out. All right, next we have Feral issue number 1. Similar creative team than Stray Dogs, which I absolutely loved when it came out a few years ago. This book right here, another set of animals set in the same universe. We're going to see what's going on. I will say that this is a gorgeous book. Some of the composition and the coloring and the panels and everything, it's very, very readable. And I just love the way that this book looks. So many beautiful moments in this book, like this title page right here. It's very, very cool. I will say I like the premise. I like the idea of the book. I'm not too thrilled on the execution of it. Some parts are pretty repetitive. There's this weird ghostly element in the middle of this book too that didn't quite hit with me either. I'm not quite sure if it's some kind of apparition or some kind of memory or some kind of essence or something like that. But the essential idea is we have a series of animals that have been involved in this accident while they're being transported from one area to the other. And now they're having to deal with this rabies attack from this raccoon. And so we're having to deal with all that right now. That's where the feral part comes in, because everybody here knows and likes each other. So now all of a sudden we're going to be throwing in this feral aspect, and we're going to be essentially on the run right now, because this is going to quickly turn into like a horror movie very, very, very quickly. And so I'm totally down for that. Man, the cleanness of this artwork and coloring, man, it's absolutely beautiful. So definitely check this out if you love horror type comics. I think it's going to head in that direction for sure. We're setting the stage for that. Great creative team on here. Amazing looking book for sure. Execution was a little bit off for me in the first issue. We'll see if it can pick it up in the subsequent ones though. Let me know what you thought. Joshua Williamson on Duke, issue number 4. This was such a great issue as well. This is essentially our jailbreak. Can we put aside our differences? Can Duke and Baroness put aside their differences, team up, and escape whatever this army is that's attacking them right now? And that's exactly what we get. Some amazing artwork from Tom Riley in here, and Jordi Belair is doing a great job as always. And yeah, it was just an action-packed, kick-ass, exploding issue. I'm just so sad that we only get one more issue to this. I think there's only 5. This needs to be an ongoing series. I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite Energon books out right now. We get a new enemy that was introduced at the end of this one. Again, you G.I. Joe heads are probably excited to see it. I don't know who it is, but I'm totally down because the character looks great. This was a great book. Duke, issue number 4. Dude, check it out. Somna. This is the conclusion from Distillery, issue number 3, in this like magazine size format. Killer covers too. on this thing. I actually enjoyed this issue more than the other 2 issues, so I'm kind of sad to see it go. If you're into witch possession, Salem witch trial kinds of things, if you like some romance novel-ish kind of stuff and you want to blend it all together, mix a little bit of demon stuff in there as well, that's basically what you get inside of Somna. And you get some amazing artwork in here. And again, it shifts between this dream state and this reality state. It is mature rated, so just be aware of that. We get this really amazing, like watery dream state art that I mentioned before, which just really makes this book pop for sure. The ending of this book is a little bit weird for me. I don't exactly know what is going on. There's a witch trial inside of here. Like, how do we prove who she is? There's actual witches in there that are, tilting the scales back and forth, trying to set other people up. There's a husband in here who doesn't quite know what to do. And there's this like ominous ending to this book too, that I just haven't quite figured out yet. So I'm interested to see what you guys think actually happens at the end of this book. So let me know down below. But Somna issue number 3, cool series so far. It's not everything that I look for in a comic and a story, but it was pretty satisfying. What'd you guys think? All right, guys, that's everything I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read and what your picks of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.